A little more than 40 years ago, Marvel Comics introduced the world to a character whose superhuman strength was fueled by nothing more than a very basic, very human condition: anger.
Granted, an accidental and massive dose of gamma radiation didn't help any, but ultimately it was his extreme rage that turned him from a mild-mannered scientist into a mean, green, fighting machine.
Unstoppable and capable of wreaking incredible havoc on anyone or anything that lay in his path. We are, of course, talking about the Hulk. And who better to bring him to the big screen than director Ang Lee?
I'm going to take you where the action is, explore the Hulk experience as it happens on the set, and also check out his earliest days as a comic book icon.
And I'm up here at ILM, the premier effects house, where an amazing group of designers are doing their part to create the living, breathing beast that up to now existed only in Ang's mind. And here's the lowdown.
These are the stages at Universal Studios where we shot some of the scenes from the Hulk. And in a few of them, my character comes face to face with the Green Goliath. And believe me when I tell you, this movie gives new meanings to the words, "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry."
I very much like to think the Hulk as the unknown, the real you, that we have to cover it with our own character.
If you've ever had any experience with a 2-year-old who has not gotten what he or she wants at the supermarket, you've had experience with the Hulk.
It's so easy to empathize. It's so easy to imagine you could be that guy. We all know that feeling of rage. If only I could do something about it.
Marker.
Action.
Ready when you are.
Well, let's hit it.
Safety's all going green. Countdown started.
Animate's fully dispersed.
Okay. Let's hit Freddy with the gamma radiation.
Bruce Banner is a PhD scientist at the cutting edge of a new science of nanotechnology.
Gamma exposure.
He's had failure after failure, and it's very frustrating for him. He's a character who doesn't feel comfortable expressing his frustration and his rage, and he holds it in.
Betty, what's happening to me?
I don't know.
Betty Ross is infatuated, I think, with the notion of trying to solve all the mysteries in Bruce's head.
I mean, your birth parents. I don't understand why you don't want to find out about them.
You sense that there's something kind of vulnerable about her, something missing, something slightly broken about her. And then she has this kind of complicated relationship with Bruce, her partner.
Why do you always come back to this?
Don't know. Guess I figure there's more to you than you like to show. Guess there couldn't be any less.
Sounds good. Hey, Mark.
Action! I think the circuit's kind of fried. I don't know. Maybe you want to come take a look at it.
Okay, I'll be right there.
As in the original comic books, there's going to be an accident. Bruce is going to selflessly attempt to save somebody else.
Bruce, I can't stop it! Get out! He inhales the nanomeds and is then exposed to gamma radiation.
You should be dead.
They worked.
Bruce, they've killed everything else that they've come into contact with.
The doctor gave me the full workup. He wants to know where he can get what I'm taking. I'm 100%.
The reason he didn't die is because he had inhaled the nanomeds, and he had a mutant gene that his father had been working on himself that he had passed on to his son.
Your name is not Krenzler. It's Banner. Bruce Banner.
Nick Nolte, who portrays David Banner, presents something of at first a mystery, and then a serious problem.
When Ann came out to the house and we sat down and talked, he said, I don't know how to make a comic book, but I can make a Greek tragedy. It meant we could explore the darkness of relationship father-son, the severance of it, the integration of the shadow side of our personality. I didn't come here to see you. I came here to see my son. My real son. The one inside of you.
Nick Nolte is a blast. I've never seen anybody work so hard for a character. I've never seen anybody work with his kind of concentration. And he can make any line work. And he's just purely brilliant.
Everything your extraordinary mind has been seeking all these years. It's been inside you. Now we will understand it. We will harness it.
The father is the gatekeeper of all the information and all the past and all the things that are troubling Bruce so much.
So he's set on a journey of both self-discovery as well as a struggle to control what it is that he's discovering. Because the more he knows, the more out of control that which he knows becomes.
One of the key attractions to me right from the get-go is the idea that he becomes the Hulk reluctantly.
I always thought it's a good thing to use rage as a catalyst to unleash what's inside there. And in doing so, I think we open up to a whole lot of possibility instead of just smashing things. It's an unleash of true emotion.
I need everything we have in order to stop his movement. So this is the young Bruce Banner. I think you left something in your lab last night.
Ross, on one hand, is a very successful military man, but on the other side, has, failed on a lot of levels as a father.
Look, I'm gonna get right to it.
It's about Glenn, isn't it? He's been snooping around my lab.
I noticed some things. Asked me to make some inquiries.
Are you here to question me?
And of course, his daughter doesn't want any part of him being involved, and there you go. Drama.
Betty!
Talbot is the kind of quintessential arch enemy, the arch rival. And he poses a threat to my work and to my lab and to everything that I stand for.
Let me give you a little heads up. The work you're doing here is dynamite. Think. GIs embedded with technology that makes them instantly repairable on the battlefield. In our sole possession. That's a hell of a business.
He's incredibly driven, extremely ambitious, powerful, self-righteous, very military trained, who thinks that he is exalted, and that he has a right to be doing what he's doing. And I think that's oftentimes the case of bad guys, their belief in what they're doing as opposed to their belief in being bad.
What makes you think you can go behind my back and get Ross to cut me out, huh?
The key driver is anger, fear, rage.
Talbot. Yeah, you're making me angry.
Oh, am I?
He's turning into this out of control, large green monster with very little control over himself.
So once the Hulk emerges, Bruce has to begin to deal with that mystery of who he is, where he comes from. At that point, things just take off. and you're off to the races.
I call it my new green destiny. It's the pursuing of that alter ego, that real you that's hiding in the dark, the fate, the mystery.
I will isolate it and treat myself, and I'll kill it before it does any real harm.
But would you really destroy part of yourself? I don't think so.
My character, Major Glenn Talbot, really throws down with the Hulk. And as you can imagine, ends up a little worse for the wear. But when I'm getting pummeled, I'm not really up against a 15-foot giant. I'm up against this. Hulk on a stick. This terrifying head-stick combo is what we all had to work with when we were doing scenes with the Hulk.
57 Frank, take 1A camera, sound speed.
And action.
The logistics of shooting a shot where I'm standing outside and this is the first time I see the Hulk. And he comes out and he's standing before me and then he kind of leans down. We have to establish the eye lines and of course he's all going to be digital so there's nothing there. And to establish the eye lines they have this like cardboard cutout of a Hulk head with just like really crude drawing of two eyes and mouth kind of going like this. And some guy stands around with this head on a stick, you know, and says, okay, well at this point it's that high and then it's here and they bend it. So they do that and it's for me to kind of get a reference of where it's going to be. And then I don't even have that. Then they take that away when we shoot.
The Hulk picks you up and he puts you on the roof of the car. And that had to be really fine integration between us and CG Hulk. We had her flying from an overhead rig, and then I had lines in my hands and my fingers, just like you would with a marionette. And I was actually controlling her rotation and her bounce.
In real life, what's happening is I'm sitting there doing sort of mime 101, you know, going like, Hulk's picking me up now, and, you know, it's pretty funny.
To me, it's like the purest form of acting. It's the purest form of imagination. It's the purest form of a place to come and say, I am working with absolutely nothing. You have to imagine and sit there and go, okay, now he's 9 feet, now he's 12 feet, now he's 15 feet. It's very difficult technically because you're having to imagine where those pieces are and imagine what you would really be, how you would really be reacting.
It was quite literally like working on 2 different films at once, which made it very interesting and exciting. Because you'd come to work and one day you'd be doing this huge dramatic scene in which you felt like you were in a, you know, the most dramatic film you could be in, and then you'd disappear for 2 days and you'd come back and go, what is going on here? What happened to the film? What happened to this dark little drama I was working on? Now they're ripping down walls and there's some guy walking around with a stick with a head on top of it running down the corridor. So it was fascinating.
There was a lot of destruction and a lot of physical effects on the set. You know, it was very difficult work. I mean, that lab sequence was really difficult. Those are real walls that are coming down and real windows that are being broken, real lab equipment that's being destroyed, and there's nothing phony about it.
I think, you know, with the wind and the delay of debris kind of in the air, if you go too much faster, you're going to start missing some of it. Whatever the Hulk comes in contact with, manipulates, pushes, shoves, breaks, touches, lifts, falls under the category of the, you know, on-set physical effects crew, which is my team. It is completely a part of what you're doing, the whole rigging aspect. So it's an intricate and thought out process. You just can't be random with what you do because later on, you can't animate to it.
Here we go. Ready and do it!
Movement is important. How the actor moves in relationship to the way the Hulk is going to move when the animators get a hold of it. You have to see a little piece of the Hulk in the real guy and a little bit of the real guy in the animated Hulk. So there's a real fine coordination between the CG folks, the stunt department, and special effects.
You'll see a banner house out back where a person is thrown out through a window on a couch.
3, 2, 1.
One of Charlie's guys has to be on the couch on cue, fall off the couch and hang up on a rail as the couch ends up down into the street. The Hulk walks out, bashes through the front of the house, with Charlie's guys still on the rail, not hurting him.
9 cameras, amazing looking, huge explosion. The thing looked totally incredible. A lot of the movie is me getting beaten up physically by the Hulk or by the fights that Eric and I have or being thrown around.
3, 2, 1, go!
The good thing about the scenes with Josh was it was the only person that I got to do some really heavy physical stuff with, so it was always a relief when he would come onto the set, even though he'd beat the crap out of me every time. And it's my aim in life to do a boxing film with Josh Lucas and to try and get some revenge, slam him up against the wall. But it was fun.
Crafting a feature film with a main character who is generated from pure imagination. It takes not only a savvy filmmaker, but a true visionary. And the man that fills that bill is director Ang Lee.
And you stay there. I will kill the second beat, which is the top. That's when Hulk stand up.
The great thing about working with Ang is that every film is new. He has not made one film in the same genre, the same style. He just wants to continue to push his own envelope.
This is a big moment. Yeah, this is the legend of the big chance, yeah.
I think most people are wondering why would Ang Lee want to do a project like this, but just in one sentence, when he says, I'm interested in the struggle between Bruce Banner and the Hulk, you all of a sudden you start to get where he was coming from.
And action.
Ang's ways can be sometimes mysterious, and he loves to push the actors to absolute limits.
3, 2, 1, It's so remarkable, I think, the way he looks at the world, you know. Really lyrical sensibility.
He's very special, there's no other word for it, and that's why so many people are interested in this film. It's because they're expecting something that they can't quite envisage themselves.
Ang had to become the Hulk for all of us. And on the set, he was able to emote and communicate to the actors who the Hulk was and what he was doing.
I finished shooting months ago, but Ang and the crew at ILM are still hard at work choreographing the Hulk's every move for the computer.
Motion capture is a way of recording an actor's performance, a lot like a film camera, except in this case, we can record a performance that's going to go onto a digital character, like the Hulk. One of the great aspects of motion capture is we can, work with the talents of a director and actors and get exactly the performance that Ang wants to see on the Hulk.
Each dot of this corresponding to a certain spot of the Hulk.
Right.
So you get a good blueprint of the realism, how he moves. Of course, I don't have the Hulk's physics.
Right.
That's why they put this here, so I cannot close my arms.
Gotcha.
So I would naturally like this. And I have to do something broader, and I have to slow it down.
Those markers never move throughout the process?
Yeah, and that's part of the, the magic is taking these dots, which represent Ang's proportions,
right.
but use them to drive the Hulk, who's shaped differently. And that ends up looking something like this. So this is a kind of rough version of that data mapped on to the Hulk. So this is kind of what he'll look like, very close to a final shot.
The reason I'm doing it is so I don't have to direct another actor or stuntman. I know exactly how this should be done. It's all in my head, and it's very hard to translate to somebody else. So it's the quickest by the time frame we had. I have to jump into the suit. You should try that. It's really therapeutic,
Yeah,
very
I'm sure it is,
satisfying
I don't
to
think
see
I
what
would-
you do translate to what that guy do.
Nicely done.
Ang was very concerned with Hulk's emotional state, and there's a lot of performances that aren't typical, monster movie performance kind of stuff, but where Hulk is looking deeply into Betty's eyes or having a very subtle change of emotion or mood. And Ang often shot those performances on video that were used to animate the facial performances, but it turned out that the motion capture was a good way to capture the essence of those subtle interactions.